Now, with respect to USDC, the challenge with that, guys, if it was a matter of just cutting a $10 million check, I don't think it would have been too much of an issue. That money could have materialized one way or the other, through the Treasury or Catalyst or some combination of different actors working together. It's really difficult to understand at the moment what exactly Circle wants.
Stablecoin liquidity and adoption has been a huge talking point within the past couple of weeks on Cardano. As a part of today's video, I was able to get a piece of Charles's time to ask him a little bit more about USDC and exactly what is preventing Circle from launching on the network. What's up, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything Cardano and crypto. My name is Fareed. As a part of today's video, I want to highlight a recent excerpt from a community Twitter space held by Charles Hoskinson. As you guys are very well aware, we've been having a lot of conversations surrounding the adoption of USDC, or Circle's fiat-backed stablecoin. In addition to that, there's been counter arguments as to why we should utilize a homegrown fiat-backed stablecoin, for example, like USDM coming from the Mahen team. Now, as a part of today's video, I want to go ahead and just quickly play back a question that I was able to post to Charles Hoskinson surrounding governance, number one, and exactly how that can be used to make proper decisions when it comes to overarching changes like the one that we might see with the integration of Circle. My second question, or my follow-up to Charles, was surrounding his opinion on why we have yet to see, USDC launching on Cardano. Now, as a part of Charles's answer, he does touch on a few different topics, including the Wyoming state-backed stablecoin. He also highlights the IOG Stablecoin Venture led by Sean Ford, as well as some technical specifications as to how we might actually get USDC implemented here on Cardano. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and play this video, but then following that, I want to briefly take a moment to recap some of the main highlights.
Yeah, my question is just a quick one for Charles. I'm sure you're more than aware. There's been a lot of chat surrounding USDC and just stable coins, etc. With governance around the corner, how do you see the governance platform that we're going to have being used the right way to vote for some of these big protocol changing decisions, especially when it comes to misinformation? As you mentioned earlier, with Twitter, there's a lot of people that just have big voices, and it's not that what they say is necessarily correct, but a lot of people tend to listen to them as opposed to doing their own due diligence. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on governance and then some of the recent talks surrounding stablecoins on Cardano. Thanks.
Yeah, so you have three parts. You have a democratic consent, you have institutions, and you have constitutional representation. These are the three ingredients to a good government. And the point of them is that the institutions act as a dampener and moderator of the extremism, and they allow you over time to converge to a fact-based conversation. And democratic consent, if it's structured appropriately, what that allows you to do is embrace a considered and a deliberate approach to force the institutions to basically get to the right state. And when you have constitutional representation, what that does, it makes it really hard to change bedrock principles that are ubiquitously important to the founders of the system. So some combination of these things is the recipe for a pretty resilient governance structure. Now, with respect to USDC, the challenge with that, guys, if it was a matter of just cutting a $10 million check, I don't think it would have been too much of an issue. That money could have materialized one way or the other, through the Treasury or Catalyst or some combination of different actors working together. It's really difficult to understand at the moment what exactly Circle wants. The foundation in particular, Fred has been doing a yeoman's work. He's been trying very hard through multiple sources to talk to Circle and basically come to terms and show that there's a very strong benefit to being a big fish in a small tank. In other words, being a great token on our system. And there's a lot of profit that Circle can make from that. And I think there's definitely a desire to subsidize that. And from our perspective, we're well more than happy to bend over backwards and do a boatload of engineering work. So there's been a lot of misinformation like, oh, the reason they didn't do this is because it's impossible to do it on Cardano, which is preposterous. Of course, we could figure out a way to get Circle to work in a UTXO system. That's just a stupid statement to say that it's not possible to do that. Yes, it's That would be like saying you can't have Cardano native assets with spending policies. It's a bizarre thing. It's definitely possible to figure these types of things out in one way or the other. And it might take a sip, but we'll get there. But the thing is that we haven't even opened that conversation. Like, it's not the case where Circle engineers came and talked to IO engineers. We talked for 3 months and we both came to opposite conclusions about things. We've never engaged, as far as I know, with anyone from that organization about how we would go about integration. We never got to that stage. So I'm not sure what the issue is. And I even met Jeremy's son, ironically, is at the same party I met JJ at way back in the day. We were at a residence in DC, and the ambassador of Bahrain was there and a few other people. And Jeremy's son just happened to be there in DC, and he actually took a picture with me, and he says, likes Cardano. So it's so weird that there's a lot of people in that organization that seem to know us, like us, and want to work with us. And Fred has directly reached out numerous times to them to try and understand what their needs are and where they're at. And it seems like the conversation just never quite gets where it needs to be. So there's going to be a way to get around that. It might be the case that it's easier to do it with a yen-based stablecoin through Japan and the Circle branch there. And it's isomorphic to the dollar. It doesn't really matter what the collateralized assets, same technology on both sides. So at least that'll show how tech works. And once you have one of the G7 currencies, you could use products to basically translate that to dollar. So one way or another, I think it'll eventually happen. But it's just a strange situation. I'm not sure why it's where it's at. And from our side at IO, we would be more than happy to work with anybody. And I think the community is very excited about the prospect of a tier 1 stablecoin coming into the ecosystem. But I don't wait for people to do things. If I think there needs to be something, we try to find a way to do it. And that's why we started XE. We hired Sean Ford, the former CEO of Algorand. Jet is one of the products in the portfolio that they work on regularly, and there's a lot of great upgrades coming this year that I think it'll make it much more competitive, especially up to Jet 1.7. And they're also bidding, and they're right now working on an RFI for the Wyoming Stablecoin. Now, of course, if you listen to Twitter, Ethereum already got the Wyoming Stablecoin, and Cardano was already fired and everything like that. But lo and behold, it's still an open bidding process, and they've already explicitly said they're going multi-chain. So I think we have very strong prospects in the long run to be competitive there. But that's going to take a little bit of time because it moves at the speed of state government. And there's a lot that has to be done to make that a practical system for the space. So, we look at the algorithmic side, we look at the asset side, we look for partners everywhere. There's already several projects on Cardano that are creating stable coins and bringing them over. And there's people who've explored wrapped assets. We've had some issues like with the Nomad hack is one example. And I would hope that Circle sees the wisdom in coming and being on a very large DeFi protocol in the top 10 that really does need a product like that. And if those conversations can happen, then of course we'll be available just like we were with Coinbase and Rosetta integration. And it's going to take a lot of engineering, but it's perfectly doable. And our engineers are more than capable of working with people in the community to get that done quickly and efficiently for the ecosystem. So that's all I can say about it. I wish I knew more, but it's kind of the same bucket I put Gemini in, where we always heard from them that they were going to list data. We were like, of course, we want to work with you. Tell us what you need. And then silence, and then silence, and then silence. And we never really figured out why there was silence there in that relationship.
I think if I can interject here with respect to with Circle, I feel like instead of people saying, hey, why isn't this entity or that entity pushing to integrate Circle into Cardano, I think you just have to tweet at Circle and say, you're missing out on volume. Like the ADA DeFi markets are all growing and you're missing out on it. It's when it's in their interest, they'll come and they'll make money off of it, yeah. Right? But they don't know.
Oh, and JJ, Fred told me that the internal financial models they prepare, they think Circle can make 8 figures per year being a stable coin on Cardano. And they took the time to actually write all those numbers down. Again, Fred has really done some great work here. Sometimes I'm a critic of the CF, but this is certainly not an area where I have been. I think I'm completely aligned with them and that they've really put in the time to model and explain the benefits. It's more, you're absolutely right. Tweet at Circle and say, hey, when Cardano, come on over. And I think that might move the ball a little faster.
I
If you
have
don't
a
mind,
quick.
if you don't mind interjecting, just really quick about the technical aspects, if you don't mind. So from the perspective of a technical implementation of Circle, it's actually extremely easy. So basically, what you could do with a new Cardano smart contracts and Icon, to make it even super fast, is you could just have a smart contract where the datum has the owner of the assets, except the smart contract, the assets can't leave the smart contract, and then Circle has some sort of master key which allows for clawbacks and freezing or whatever they need to be regulatory compliant. And this extends to basically mimicking all functionality of Ethereum on Cardano. You could do it with under 100 lines of code in a smart contract. So my thought is that I don't think at least from that perspective, I don't think it's a technical problem that Circle is happening. I think that there's another reason behind it because
that's exactly my thought too. When I looked at the original business spec and requirements from 2021, I didn't think it was going to be too complicated to accommodate what they needed to be done. And I figured, well, I haven't seen an exhaustive list of business and technical requirements, so maybe there's more to the story than people are letting on. But I share your opinion. There's no reason at all why this should be a super complex thing, and I don't think it requires a hard fork or account abstraction or any significant primitive in the system to be able to accommodate their needs. I just think it's more of a business and commercial issue, and I'm not exactly sure where those wires got tripped. Maybe we're pro Wyoming Stablecoin, and Circle doesn't want that competitor or something. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I'm only speculating at this point. I have no evidence one way or the other. It'd be really helpful if we could just pick up the telephone and talk to people. As sometimes frayed as the relationship can be with some actors in the space, like Joe Lubin or the Ethereum Foundation, if we need something, I can still pick up the phone and call Joe directly. And there's been times where I've done that. If I need something, I can still talk to Vitalik. It's not often, but I could still pick up the red phone and we could figure something out. And this is just one of those weird situations where there's no red phone. And so I don't know what the concern is or the issue is. And it's not really my role or remit to negotiate a deal like that. That's going to have to be done either by the CF or Intersect. And if the community wants to make a mandate out of it, they certainly can. But one way or another, something will come down. It's just like when Coinbase was in the air for listing. There was an inevitability behind it. Everybody would ask every day, when Coinbase. And now we're here, nobody asks anymore, right? It's just a standard fact of life. So it's just a long-term consequence of it. But in the meantime, it does give the smaller stablecoins in Cardano a little bit of time to gather market share and loyalty. And that's a good thing too. So there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And this is definitely one of them where, in the absence of a tier one to drain all the air out, innovation can take place. And maybe that will end up becoming the way we do things. Remember, Circle was quite small at one point. It was the underdog at one point.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that video as much as I did. Again, it's always amazing to hear from Charles. Also, big shout out to JJ Seiler, the chief of staff for IOG, as well as Avatar Nick for chiming in with respect to exactly how this solution can be implemented here on Cardano. Now, I know that the community is very torn right now, with the majority actually in favor of adoption of something like USDC, with the minority basically aiming for something that is going to be more homegrown. For example, like the IUSD token from Indigo or JED, or potentially even Mahen's USD or USDM, I should say, fiat-backed stablecoin. Now, in a brief recap of Charles's response, first things first, he stated that money is not a problem. So it's more or less, what does Circle actually want? There's been a lot of talk about the fact that they're asking for an 8-figure amount, which obviously ranges from anywhere between $10 million to $99 million. I think it's going to be more or less on the conservative side of things. So probably anywhere between 10 to 20 million to actually onboard USDC onto Cardano, but it doesn't seem to be an issue when it comes to money. So he highlighted the fact that between himself, the Cardano Foundation, IOG, and Emergo, that they could definitely find a way to raise the funds, or we could potentially use the Cardano treasury. As an update here, I want to state the fact that the Project Catalyst platform is officially out of the running for a potential way to actually fund USDC's integration into Cardano. We had a recent tweet from Daniel, who's a key contributor to Catalyst, and he basically highlighted the fact that Project Catalyst cannot be used in order to bootstrap or in order to provide liquidity to particular protocols. So it appears that Catalyst is out of the picture, but short of that, we've got the Intersect MBO, which will be taking over the Cardano treasury. And of course, we've got the Cardano Foundation, IOG, and potentially Emergo. Now, one of the complaints that I've seen with respect to one of the founding three entities actually funding the integration of USDC onto Cardano is the fact that that could be seen as a way to push the price or the value of Cardano, therefore making Cardano a security. So one of the biggest things to keep in mind there when it comes to the actual funding of this initiative is going to be who is actually going to be doing that. And right now, as it stands, in my personal opinion, it seems that going through the Cardano treasury through something like the Intersect member-based organization will be the best way to do this and the easiest way to make sure to avoid being labeled as a potential security. Now, the next thing is that IOG is willing to actually do the engineering work to support USDC. So that was one of the biggest things that Charles mentioned there as well. I highlighted this before. It sounds like there might need to be a potential SIP or Cardano improvement proposal that is proposed in order to make sure that all the changes necessary for USDC to come onto Cardano are satisfied for Circle. But nonetheless, IOG is willing to basically collaborate with the engineers from USDC in order to make that happen. So pretty positive news there when it comes to opening the door to USDC on Cardano. Following that, he also highlighted that right now, it is not impossible to have Circle work with the current UTXO model. Again, shout out to Avatar Nick here. He basically broke down the technical aspects of how he plans to implement or how he can provide the functionality that USDC would need to in order to launch on Cardano. So it looks like, again, it's not going to be an issue with the actual engineering or with the actual implementation of some of the potential clawbacks and freezing mechanisms that Circle currently has within EVM compatible networks. Moving over, he did talk about the fact that we could potentially have a yen-based backing as opposed to a US dollar-based backing. So right now, because the United States is somewhat lagging with respect to regulations, it sounds like it might actually be better to work with Circle's arm, which I believe is tied to Japan, where they have a backing, or where we could have a potential backing utilizing the yen or their native fiat currency. Now, again, your assets on chain would still be backed by a dollar. There would just have to be some sort of back-end conversion to make sure that the yen backing the fiat-backed stablecoin is equivalent to the dollar amount there as well. So interesting perspective there when it comes to potential integration of USDC. However, with a yen backing as opposed to a dollar backing initially. Now, Charles also mentioned that he doesn't necessarily like to wait on things like this, where Circle's just kind of been quiet without giving us a specific reason as to why they're not integrating on Cardano. And to that end, we've seen the IOG or Cardano's Input-Output Global actually putting money towards hiring 2 new members. One is going to be Sean Ford, and the second, let's see here, is going to be David Markley, right? In order to basically create a stablecoin venture. So I assume that this team is going to be focusing on creating a Cardano specific stablecoin ecosystem. And again, this appears to be Charles's way to kind of get the ball rolling specifically for Cardano without having to wait for people like Circle or USDC. In addition to that, we do have Anzins, who's going to be backed by Emergo. However, their stablecoin right now has been paused within the United States, again, due to regulatory hurdles. But we've seen Emergo also putting their hands to the plow in order to bring a stablecoin over into Cardano. So let me quickly go ahead and pull that up. And if you guys are not aware, you can access this website at anzins.com. And it just quickly states here, this is going to be a stable coin to empower Cardano, very similar to what we have with USDM. This will be backed 1 USDA to a single dollar, fueled by Cardano, and it should hopefully be regulatory compliant. So to that end, it looks like Charles is definitely aware, and because they're not hearing from Circle, they're basically kicking off their own initiatives, including the recent IOG Stablecoin Venture. Moving over, another key highlight that he mentioned was surrounding the Wyoming Stablecoin. So if you guys are not aware, the state of Wyoming, where I believe Charles has extremely strong ties to, as well as personal ties to, is aiming to bring along their own stablecoin, but they haven't decided which network they actually want to launch on, whether that's going to be on Cardano or potentially Ethereum. So I'm going to be doing more research and providing you guys with more content surrounding the Wyoming stablecoin. But as a brief update here, it states, and this is posted about 3 or 4 months ago, Input Output Global, or IOG, which developed Cardano's blockchain and is domiciled or homed in Wyoming, has offered to develop the Wyoming-backed stablecoin for just $1, citing the project's importance to the state. In August, an IOG representative also discouraged the commission from using Ethereum, which prompted an Ethereum community member to travel from the Cayman Islands to Laramie in order to advocate for the actual blockchain in September. Now, that rebuttal in turn drew a critique from IOG's Charles Hoskinson, who, as you guys are probably more than well aware, co-founded Ethereum before leaving to launch Cardano. In addition, or in closing, we have Emergo's chief of staff, Shunsuke, and the COO, Nikhil, who basically offered their support to the state of Wyoming by showing up and basically trying to move the conversation forward and highlighting the Cardano forward-thinking approach when it comes to stablecoins and just decentralization and building on blockchain. So we've got a couple different avenues here, and I wanted to quickly highlight that this could be why Circle's hesitating to launch on Cardano, because if we are able to get the Wyoming stablecoin to launch on Cardano, that would be a direct competitor to USDC. So a couple of things to keep in mind, right? If USDC wants to come over into Cardano, utilize our DeFi or bolster our DeFi, they want to make sure that they have the majority of the market share, and with additional stable coins, right, especially those such as big as the Wyoming state stablecoin, could potentially be a threat, which is delaying the launch of USDC on Cardano. Now, moving over, Charles also stated that Frederick Regard has run the numbers and highlighted the fact that Circle could potentially make over $8 million per year utilizing or launching their stablecoin on Cardano. I would assume that that would come in from minting and potentially burning fees of the actual USDC token, as well as trading fees, as well as potential market maker fees, just by providing or supplying liquidity in order to have the token actually become liquid here on Cardano. So I'm not sure about the specifics about how they would actually make that $8 million, but nonetheless, it looks like Frederick Regard from the CF has run the numbers and figured out that USDC could make all the way up to $8 million per year by launching on Cardano. So from USDC's point, not only would Cardano have to pay them to launch on Cardano, they would then actually be making over $8 million per year on the network itself. So it seems to me like that's a no-brainer for USDC. Again, we're not sure why they've yet to launch, but that could be a big reason as to why they would want to launch here in the next couple of months, if not years. Now, last but not least, Charles did mention that this is more or less a business or commercial issue. So it sounds like maybe because, again, Cardano has a certain perception within the blockchain space, maybe because of how young or immature compared to some of these other networks Cardano currently is, that could potentially be off-putting to Circle. Again, we don't actually have a specific reason, but I wanted to quickly go ahead and recap some of those main bullet points. I will be coming out with more stablecoin related videos. I really enjoy, the conversation and the engagement that a lot of these conversations are bringing. I'm not just putting out content to hopefully help you guys out. I'm also learning a lot when it comes to securities laws and exactly how we can get this implemented. So I will be planning a fully dedicated live stream, hopefully this weekend, highlighting all of the pros and all of the cons of a stablecoin like USDC on Cardano. I would love to hear from you, the community. I would love to actually bring members up from the community, some that are pro stablecoin or pro USDC, and some that are con or against USDC here on Cardano. Again, just to have a nice, healthy conversation surrounding what this opportunity could actually become. That said, that will do it here for today's video. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed hearing directly from Charles himself, talking about governance, talking about USDC, and exactly what can be done in order to meet halfway and get one of the biggest fiat-backed stablecoins here on Cardano, exposing us to massive growth and potentially massive liquidity. As always, if you guys found any portion of today's video to be helpful, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by Dapp Central and you want more content like this, consider subscribing. And last but not least, if you have any questions for me surrounding the stablecoin or Charles's recent response, then make sure to go ahead and leave a comment down below. That said, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video.